Hola, chicas. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, where Latinas share their journeys of cultural identity, from pain points to thriving into their authenticity. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, coming to you every Wednesday at 5 p.m. California Pacific Coast time, which is finally feeling like the middle of the day as we lean into our Memorial Holiday weekend and another powerfully confident mujer in this month of May, celebrating the amazing world we have, all thanks to the females making it happen. Hope you took away some valuable lessons from Alexa Martinez over these last 2 weeks, encouraging you to reclaim your life and fill it with joy by defining the core values that you just can't live without. I don't know about you, but it was tough to do for me. But it also made me realize just how much of my decision-making was based on other people's needs rather than my own. And today, we are fueling that love of self with a woman who has made it her life to support her comunidad, both local and worldwide, on a 24/7 basis. Now, that's not working 24/7 because that would be a whole heck of a lot of burnout, but instead, providing access to valuable resources for Latinas who want to discover the world. And the timing could not be more profound for this episode as I just trekked through the fairyland parts of Slovenia that will have you shocked by its pristine countryside. The entire time there, I was thinking of today's conversation, sinking into the emotion of traveling to break open my mind, renew my spirit, and let the joy from within finally break free again to lead my life. Yep, all thanks to today's guest, Bianca Alba. Bianca is a Bolivian first-gen who rose to the top of life here in the U.S., ultimately receiving her master's in public health and landing a job with the CDC, but not just in the Washington, D.C. area where she grew up. Instead, she literally landed in Puerto Rico just days after the devastating Hurricane Maria. That fueled Bianca to take things into her own hands to help people in need when the system left them without hope. Bianca talks about her own transformation in embracing her cultural identity and how it fueled a life of adventure with confidence and faith. She founded This Latina Travels, based on her own travel experiences that saw few Latinas relishing in the adventures. Wanting to encourage more amigas to join up in the world, Bianca created valuable resources, guides, and her own podcast to answer the myriad of questions that come up, not just for first-time travelers, but to travelers to a new part of the world. Discover everything about Bianca in this episode and what you would never guess about her. Then again, you probably will, because even though she is a fireball that makes things happen, she is obviously filled with the love of people, the love of life, and life around the world. Get cozy, relax into your comfy place, because Bianca Alba is coming to you now, introducing herself and the world to you. So welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, Bianca. So grateful to have you here and can't wait to hear your story because I think it's just really intriguing how you got here, where you are. We're not going to let that out yet. So welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to share this space.
Great. Yes. Warm, inviting, a welcoming space, holding you in our hearts. So we always like to honor and learn of our ancestral heritages and families and how we got to where we are. So would you like to share that with us?
Of course. So I was born in the heart of South America, which is Cochabamba, Bolivia. And when I was little, 6 months to be exact, I came to the States. So I grew up in the DMV area, which is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I grew up all my life in Northern Virginia, 20 minutes from the capital. And growing up in a majority American white neighborhood, but we were the minority. We were under poverty. I'm the oldest of 4 women. So all girls in my family, all sisters. And when I went to school, I actually ended up staying in the DMV area. And so I knew for a long time in my life that I wanted to get out of the area, but I didn't know how or when. And so, of course, as a proud first-gen Latina, school was the number one thing. Like, it was like, okay, well, you need to go to school to get a job, to start your career. And so I ended up doing that. And I also went back to get my master's, and I have both my undergrad and master's in public health. And then finally, after grad school, I ended up moving out of the area.
Oh, gosh. Wow. Okay. That must have been a little difficult growing up in that space. Was there a community at all of Hispanic South Americans, or was it pure outside DC suburb?
Yeah. So where I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, and Fairfax County is one of the most prestigious counties in the country. And so as you can imagine, everybody around me did not look like me. And if they did, it was like 2 or 3 other Latinas. And so I didn't really understand or grow up in my culture in that sense. Like, yes, I spoke Spanish at home. Spanish was my first language. And yes, I never forgot that I was from Bolivia. Clearly, my mom was also an immigrant. So all she knew was her background, her culture. So that was definitely rooted in like my my upbringing. But I didn't grow up doing like the traditional dancing, especially the Bolivian dancing. I didn't grow up like being in the Bolivian culture and the norm. And while there is a big Bolivian population in the Northern Virginia area, my mom, for the sake of it, decided not to really associate herself with that. So that to me was really hard. Like that, I feel like growing up, like culturally, I didn't know how to identify, even though I knew that I was Latina and I was proud to be Latina. I didn't really know who my group of circle was. And it wasn't until college where I went to one of the most diverse institutions, George Mason University, and I really learned about my history, my culture, and I joined a Latina sorority. I was really involved with the Latine club on campus, and that's where like my culture and my roots, I think, really like started blossoming.
Congratulations, first of all. What an amazing academic story you have. But what did you envision doing with public health? What was your dream then?
Yeah, so I think any first gen, whenever we go to school, like you are either kind of told you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a lawyer, because that's the only...
Or an engineer.
Or an engineer, yes, you're right. Or an engineer.
That's it.
Those three. It's either those three and that's it. And again, it's not because like the lack, well, it is a mix of lack of education. Clearly our parents, were struggling just making means work. But I also think, we just are the unknown. And so when I went to school, I was really privileged to go on a full ride scholarship. So that was another big blessing for me. Yes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you too. Amazing.
Yeah. And so ever since I was like a kid, I loved community service. I loved group things. I loved doing outdoor stuff. And so I was like, there must be a way of how I can build my career in helping people. So to me, helping people meant becoming a doctor or becoming a nurse. And so when I first went to school, I was a pre-med student, and I learned quickly that taking 4 to 5 sciences plus like working full time and still helping out your family is not easy at all. And I wasn't a honor roll student in high school. And then when I went to college, I learned real quickly of what failing really meant. And it was like literally getting an F in a class. And I was just like, what is it? So you put all this stress on a first gen, like, because no one's ever taught you, and you're not dumb. It's just a lot. And so while other, kids or not kids, while other young adults in college have the money for tutors, have the money to, not have to work, we don't. And so it just kind of was like a reality check for me, in a sense, because I knew then and there, like, I don't want to go to med school. Like, I don't see myself fighting like all this debt for years. 1, 2, I was like, I don't have the passion, but what else? There must be something else out there. And so then that's how I ended up learning about public health.
So first gen Latina, who's the oldest daughter, you have all the weight of everything placed on your shoulders. And you're showing a lot of the listeners here, one, resonating with that completely. And two, a path of resonating with getting into college, being there, having to work, having to, how are you going to get the resources? Not knowing there are resources to help you out. I know a lot of us, really hard to ask for help, not used to asking for help and guiding your way through that. And you did extremely well. You're such a beacon for people. At this point, were you bringing in your culture and your love of your heritage balanced into your life and saying, okay, these two can live together now?
Yes, I think, honestly, I'm not going to lie. When I graduated with my master's, I knew that I wanted to get out of the area, right? And so I think my main focus wasn't really identifying even who I was. I don't even think I knew who I was. Even though I had these degrees, I was debt free, mostly with student loan. It was still me trying to find the identity of who or what I was going to do with my life. And so I don't think that clicked until I really moved and moved out of the area. I ended up going to New Mexico. So I ended up starting my career with public health with CDC. It was under a fellowships and with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. But I had to move to New Mexico, which from Washington, D.C. is a huge change, literally across the country, whole complete different time zone. I didn't know anybody. And then to top it off, I had just gotten out of my serious relationship of 6 years. So I was heartbroken. And so I think that's where I started figuring out who I was and what I'm about. And that's where I actually started dancing salsa more. And so I ended up dancing salsa in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's
shout out to Albuquerque.
Yes, shout out to Albuquerque. Who would have thought?
Okay.
And that's where I learned more about my Latiness and my Latin roots. Yes, of course, college had a big impact, but it wasn't until I moved out and was literally on my own traveling. I was, again, I wasn't making that much, but I was road tripping everywhere, and I was really sensing who I was. Is where I started identifying who I am.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. I love that. So what do you think were the most, I'm going to say, shocking to you when you're discovering who you are, you're discovering your true self? What shocked you the most that came forward?
I think one of the biggest shocking things to me has just been seeing myself as my mother when she was young. My mom had me when she was young, so she was 17. She moved to a whole new different country. I get always emotional talking about her because it's just it's how did she do it, right? And so when I reflect, my life now, I'm I am the person that I am because of her willingness and her strength. We are completely different in a sense, right? I didn't have kids when I was young. I didn't completely move to a whole different country, not knowing the language or anything, but I still feel I have that fire of her. The fact that I was able to move to a whole complete different place and that I have overcome so much. But now, I think a big aha moment is when I have moments with my therapist and talk about my upbringing and that I'm comfortable talking about it, right? And I think that's also a big component.
It's loving yourself. I love everything about me and what brought me to this point. And that's, sit in that for a minute. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I do love that fire. You definitely have the fire. And I get it. Honor to all our parents, mother and father. So then you're flourishing in yourself, so much more important. Flourishing in yourself. Your Latina that is coming out. You're feeling okay, I'm complete. What did that do? What did you go with that?
Yeah, so that story is definitely a story I need to write a book about. I worked for CDC. So remember, I was working for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in New Mexico. And at the time, they were looking for people to deploy to Puerto Rico because of the Zika outbreaks. Remember the mosquitoes and all that?
Oh, that's scary, though.
It is scary. But because I was a Spanish fluent speaker, they had very limited government employees that spoke Spanish and that culturally identified as Latina or Latinos. So, of course, I was on the top list. And I didn't, I don't have kids. I'm not married. So I was kind of like, okay, this is a great opportunity, not only career wise, but to like, you can really make an impact. And like, again, backtracking, right? Like I was like, well, this is a way for me to also give back to my community. So I ended up taking the deployment, and deployments usually are from 30 days to 60 days. And my 60-day deployment almost turned out to like 4 months because there was just so much work. When I tell you Zika really did affect the island, it was a big struggle. I mean, the healthcare systems here in Puerto Rico, and I talk about this in all my platforms very openly, are really, really hard. Like there are like limited doctors, there's limited like hospitals. Hospitals have limited capacity to a lot of things. When you get deployed with the federal government, you're working nonstop. Like you're working anywhere between 60 to 80 hours a week because
What?
because you're on a mission. So you're working so
Oh my
much.
Lord.
So I moved here officially 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria hit the island.
Oh my God.
And when I got off the airport, I kid you not, the whole airport was full of people trying to get out the island. There was no power or water. Like people were waiting hours to get gas at the gas stations. People, were fighting to get generators. Like it was a really hard time that I don't think, the media clearly did their justice. And it was hard. At the end of the day, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It is a U.S. territory. And so to see U.S. citizens being treated like second-class citizens was heartbreaking. In fact, that I worked for a government agency, right? And even my coworkers, like there were plenty of them who lost their homes, who didn't have water or power. And as government employers, weren't even getting any, assistance. So you can imagine people who were living in rural areas, how they were. I mean, there were months, there were years that people, didn't have, power. And that's just unacceptable. And so to me, like, I think that's probably the best word to put it. It was unacceptable, and it's frustrating and heartbreaking to see all that. I had to utilize my own resources. So it was like, put my job aside. Let me utilize my network. Let me utilize like my sorority, and like me puse mis pilas. And that's how I was able to get donations, get, money, get boots on the ground and stuff here, because everything was just so expensive. Like we're talking like Amazon was charging triple than what they would regularly charge to send like water.
Sick.
Yes, to send like necessities. To find things at Walmart or like, it was like nearly impossible. So it was just, that also was like so heartbreaking, because you would think at a time where where need is needed, you would think that these companies would be a little bit more, kind and be like, no, let's put our money hungry aside and help out these people who are literally, there was women who could barely feed their babies because there wasn't clean water.
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even think about it, honestly, but that's the problem. That's why we need to hear your stories, is because it makes us think. Yeah, there's no compassion. There's no empathy, as though they needed that extra, surcharge. You don't need it. And the whole notion of money coming before people, definitely, I could see if that doesn't align with you, the need to get away from here and be more involved in people first communities. And then God bless you for just using your own resources and your own vision to provide whatever you could for them. Like, oh, that must have been so awful. So you're have your profession. You still love helping the community. You're still forcefully going out there and making change. Love it. But what did you feel? Where did this idea for your own business come in? And what is this business?
Yeah, so this business, This Latina Travels LLC, came from just literally an idea of me trying to do something that was not my 9 to 5. So it started in 2021. Like right at the peak of the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
I, again, was working for CDC, and I will always like give grace to my job because, again, that's what I wanted to do. But what I did not sign up for was to work like 80-hour weeks. I needed a break, como se dice aquí, necesitaba un break.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what am I going to do that's not work related? So I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. And so I ended up starting my own podcast, This Latina Travels, and I wanted to just motivate and encourage more women, especially Latinas, travel the world. I, have been to 6 out of the 7 continents. And when I travel, I have traveled many places solo. And when I would look around left and right, I noticed that there was no one that looked like me. And I was like, why is that? Like, why isn't that? And are there more Latinas? Clearly, our population's huge, and clearly the want to travel is there. So what is it that's keeping, our women from traveling to these beautiful places? And I was like, if I could just create a platform, not only to encourage women, but to tell them, or to have resources that they could travel the world too. And they don't have to be millionaires. They don't have to have a partner or be in a relationship. And what can I do? So I started my podcast sharing all the gems of different countries that I've visited, things that you can't find easily on Google. So I was like, why don't I make these affordable travel guides that literally list everything that I've done with links and stuff, so you really have no excuse to not travel. Because I'm like, here, there's $25 and you get all my insights of what I did. And then, of course, I started my blog because I was like, I need to start making something out of this too. Of course, this is amazing that I'm putting this out there, but let's start building some extra income for you too, Bianca, because again, right? This is all new to me.
We give, but it's okay. We need to receive.
And so
we need to be open to receiving.
So as I have an email list there, so little by little, it's growing. I am just so passionate about it because the more and more I learn about, travel, and I learn about the communities that are out there, at the end of the day, we all as women just want to, be happy. And I feel like literally travel is that. It brings me joy.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I definitely love that. You hit on a lot of important points, especially with the cultura, especially being a woman in the cultura, growing up, not necessarily not having the resources, not traveling as a family young, not being exposed, and therefore also not being told only if you would. I don't think a lot of parents even talked about their own country, their own heritage, because sometimes it was devastating. I guess this is just growing, the phenomenal aspect of your wanderlust and the ability to just pick up and change your life in a second. What was it for you that made you want to go travel? And where was that first place that you just went to on your own?
I think for me, the first thing that I thought was, when I was a little girl, I've always dreamed. I always dreamed of going places. I always thought of myself at the beach. I kid you not, I would close my eyes and that's where I would use my imagination. And it was just because my parents couldn't afford us to go on vacations, right? We were just making means work. And so I think my aha moment was when I really realized, while our parents were traveling for necessity, we're out here traveling for joy. And that's what travel has brought to me. It's been a full circle. It not only brought me joy, but it's brought my family joy. To be able to take my family on vacation now, right? That was the aha moment. When I also think about my first field trip by myself, it was because I also put myself out there. I went to South Africa, and this was right after I had gotten out of my my bachelor's degree in college. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for me, because that to me was wow, I can get anywhere I want to. Look at me, I put myself out there. I got this trip fully funded. And now
you tend to get anywhere you want to for free.
So
because you're a baller. You're such a badass. This is insane.
I always tell people there are opportunities out there left and right. You just, again, you have to bet on yourself.
I love that. Yeah, bet heavy and just do it. You were free from school and you wanted to travel by yourself and enjoy life, but one, to help your community and medically, and two, to have come out of a public health degree. Did that not just rise because it was all around you there?
Oh, yes.
That feeling of, I could see how to help this community as well.
Yes, for sure. And it's always said, you can learn so much in a classroom or in books, but it's not until you're in the community or you're in yourself, doing the work. And that for sure was the eye-opening experience that I needed to see. So the focus on for this specific program was awareness and education behind HIV and AIDS. And that was actually one of my big topics that I studied as an undergrad. And so when I went there, I stayed at a homestay. And so the woman that, that housed me, she actually led one of the nonprofit groups. And so I was able to witness firsthand, the type of work that they were doing, how they get their funds, their everyday to work. So that to me was eye-opening. And that's where I really saw, I'm like, oh, this is how public health works.
Oh, taking that experience with you. So there's a beauty in traveling beyond joy, healing, refueling yourself, coming up with a lot of self-awareness. But also you don't know how it's going to change your world. You're seeing something, it could completely change your life. Change your direction you're going in. You tend to do things like find the deals, find the ways to get access so you don't have to be a millionaire. And this is all in your guides. We're going to give some teasers out there. What are some low-hanging ideas that people can pretty readily get resources or get to where they need to go with not as much money as they thought? What do you think are some of the low-lying aspects of travel that they could do?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to realize that everything is literally in the palm of our hand. And we live in a time now where social media, the news, the radio, podcasts are sources that are free. My podcast literally share free gems of how I made it to X, Y, and Z country, what I did. And so once you start learning and embracing and putting yourself in that situation, that's what's going to build your fire. Now that I'm older and I have my career, what I utilize as my biggest tool is budgeting. And as much as that may not sound sexy or be the best thing ever, I pay myself every single time I get paid, and that goes straight to my budget, to my travel budget fund. Because how I see it, if I don't pay myself first, if I don't, pay what fuels me, I'm not going to be happy and I'm not going to be living in my purpose. So once again, you change that mindset of okay, I don't have to pay it all at once. I can start saving and put, money towards this pot, where then I start utilizing all the other tools like travel credit cards, applications that will give you cheaper flights, etc. But it all starts with figuring out your money-wise and also what resources you can use.
Oh, I've never heard it framed like that. I've never heard it pay myself first and make sure I have this love fund going, whatever your love is. But mine's travel as well. I have wanderlust sign is literally in my studio because I love it. But I love how you frame that. And then just seeing that grow. And I agree with you totally when it comes to what experience you want out of the traveling and what experience you're comfortable with. If women were saying, I just still don't feel comfortable, what is a way for them to travel on their own, but not alone?
Yeah.
Is there a happy medium there?
Yes, there definitely are. And I love you brought this up because it's so fresh in my head. This past week, I actually did a co-Zoom happy hour call with one of my friends who is an owner of she creates group tours. It's literally called Amigas on Tours. And it's women who are mostly Latinas. You don't have to be a Latina to be part of her group tours, but mostly identify as Latinas. And they go on these group tours, and a lot of them don't know each other. And it's for that self-purpose, right? It's okay, I'm a Latina, I'm a solo traveler, but I don't want to be by myself. So what can I do? Join these group tours. I always encourage each woman to find their comfort zone, know what your limits are. And how are you going to do that? By experiencing. So, book yourself an excursion in the next city or the next state nearby. And if you can drive. And if you need to go home because, you noticed, I don't feel comfortable or something, or you missed home, then it'll be an easy shot versus when you're in another country. But just starting small is not a bad thing.
I like that idea. Yeah, I like that idea. And feel good about it. Don't be ashamed. I would think the most difficult part about traveling on your own, and assuming you're not in a group, would be eating alone. How is that overcome? What would you say to people be fine sitting with yourself at dinner. It feels awkward, I think, a little bit. It can feel
No,
awkward.
definitely. I had to learn how to do this on my own before even really traveling. And that's when I lived in New Mexico, right? Because I was like, all right, well,
True.
what am I going to do? So I would take myself out on date. It's the mind shift perspective. No, for real. And that's how I was like, okay, where am I going to take myself out on a date? Like, I'm going to take myself out on a date to X, Y, and Z. So I would go there, and usually, not always, but a lot of these places have bar seating. So instead of me feeling like really, really alone that I would be sitting at a table, I would sit at the bar. And best believe, because I was also a waitress, waitress for 4 years over here. Like, usually, usually waitresses or bartenders are chatty.
Yeah, I do love sitting at the bar just for that reason, because people are tending to sit there because they want to converse, which again is really difficult to find in the country, in the US, where people are just open to talk to strangers. Is really difficult. But if you're sitting at the bar, I agree. Yeah, I'll sit there because I'm hoping someone's going to want to chat. Where is it that you haven't been that you're yearning to go?
I want to go to Antarctica so I can say officially I've been to 7 out of the 7 continents. I do not like the cold. Wow. I will repeat, I do not like the cold. So that's been a factor, of course.
I hear they serve whiskey to keep you warm.
Yes, they do.
Maybe bring the mezcal.
Maybe. But I also, it's really expensive. I would love, and I'm speaking and I'm manifesting this, that it's going to be a sponsored trip one day. I'm putting that out there to the universe.
Yes.
But it's really expensive. It could be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 per person to get on a cruise ship.
What?
Yeah. And that's just the cruise ship part. So that's not your flights to Argentina. That's not your stays in Argentina. That's not, anything outside of the cruise ship. That's a lot of money. And if I'm going to go to Antarctica, I want to do it big. I want a balcony suite. I want a window seat. I don't want just I've actually never cruised before. Fun fact about me. So I don't know how I also react on a ship. So it's a bunch of things that I need to do before getting there. But of course, it's high on my list because I want to be able to say I've been to 7 out of the 7 continents.
It will be. It will be. Everything else is just like, yes, if this is something you're supposed to do, it will be provided. I honestly believe that. Yeah. Yeah, I was down there. I was down at the end, the very last lighthouse on the tip of South America at the end. And we were supposed to go to Antarctica. We were supposed to, but it was the shoulder. They were going into winter and the shelf closed. And then that made me, not to freak you out, because I'm sure you're going to be fine, because this is a minute ago, but it's like, ooh, shelf closing.
Yeah.
Trapped in ice at the bottom of the world. And I kind of freaked me out. Do you want to go to all the countries in the world?
Yes, I would love to do that. So that would be something I would love to fulfill. I started following this one content creator. Her name is Jessica Niguado. I can never say her last name. She's African American. Yeah. She's the first Black woman to travel to all the countries. And so she has this amazing book. And I am like, I feel like we're friends. I tell her we're friends all the time. So she doesn't know me, but she will reply back to my emails because I'm on her email listserv. So I find that so cool. The power of email listservs. But she is awesome. I look up to her, and I would love to be. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think there is like the Latina that has traveled to all countries in the world. So that would be super cool to say. I mean, it's a mission. Don't get me wrong. And because I have my 9 to 5, also it's different, right? I travel. I travel because when I want to and what I want to do. But I know that there's people who do this full time. But eventually, one day, my goal would be to step foot in every country.
Tell our listeners, like, how do they access this information? How can they get in contact with you? What's your platform like? What's the best way to get a hold of you? Like, how do they find all these amazing gems that you're providing out there?
Sure thing. So This Latina Travels on all major platforms, such as Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all of them jazz. The best way, and I would tell people to stay connected with me, is through my email listserv. So if you go to my website, thisLatinaTravels.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter where I share tips and tricks on how to travel the world, what I'm listening to, who I'm like working with, or what conferences I'm going to, because I'm all about sharing that information. So yes, please give me a follow, This Latina Travels. I have guides on my websites. I have blogs. You can sign up for my podcast. which is again on all major platforms like Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And then I'm just starting to sell merch, which is really exciting. It's a whole different world.
Oh,
But I have like luggage tags, stickers, and shirts. So little by little,
I
it's
love
growing because I just
that.
want,
Yeah.
again, I want us to continue to motivate and encourage each other to travel the world.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so fun. And so the merch is all available on your
Yes.
website? Is that where we find it? Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I do love traveling. I would love to meet up. That's the other thing. Is there a way to find where to meet up once you're there? So let's say, okay, I'm in a place where I can travel on my own. I get to some place on my own. Are there groups that just will meet up in a location? Say you want to join in. Can you just join in?
Yeah. So I tell you, don't sleep on Facebook still. Like I tell people, Facebook
Really?
has a bunch of groups. There's one that I follow called Girls Love Travel. And they are always posting like, oh, meet up in Argentina or meet up in Puerto Rico from April 17th to 18th. Who else is going to be there? And so that's a great way to also put yourself out there, especially if you're, a solo female traveler. You're not ready to join an official group, but you want to travel somewhere but have like that leeway. Then put yourself in these groups and also put yourself out there because you just never know who you'll meet. And again, I have to plug in like just, do an excursion or two. Like, whenever you're at this location, do these group tours and stuff because that's how you really meet people. Like the walking tours, and a lot of them even are free in particular big cities where you do like these walking tours and you'll meet other individuals, other travelers who probably are like in the same boat as you. So you never know.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That's great to bring up and really powerful that you mentioned this because I just literally this morning, I was looking into Andalusia and in the south of Spain and this teeny tiny town. And, I'm like, oh, I want to go there. But what's it like? And even on their little .org website for the town, they were saying they do daily walking tours and each day is a different route. So they take you to different parts of the city, but it's every day and it is free. And they tell you, okay, show up here at this point at 10 o'clock. And that's information like available for you even before you get there. Right. So that's what the type of thing you're talking about.
No, for sure.
I love that. Yeah, I would totally. I travel on my own. But usually when I'm traveling on my own is because I want to be on my own. So I'm thinking I need to go travel alone in the want to be with community.
Yes.
That I can imagine. In your experience, have you made these lifelong friendships when you're doing this?
Oh, yes. I have definitely made amazing friends while doing my travels. I went to Australia because I met my friend Jag when she was backpacking Ecuador when I was in Ecuador. So it's like little things like that. Like I'm telling you, like community and building friendship, traveling, like it all goes back to, travel. But I met my friend Jag in Ecuador. And then she lives in Australia. She's from there. And I ended up, putting it out to the universe. Oh, I need to make it to Australia. And she was like, come, I can take, sabbatical. I could take 2 weeks off in a row and we'll travel up to the north. She's like, I've never been to northern Australia. So she housed me. We went up there. We got a cabin. We swam with turtles in the Great Barrier Reef. So I'm telling you, like traveling can bring you friendships of a lifetime. And it truly has.
I love that story. Oh my God, it kind of made me cry. Like, oh my God, we love you, Jack.
Yes.
Or just how you went from backpacking in Ecuador to swimming with turtles because of one woman.
Yeah.
Like, God bless the power of female.
Yes.
Seriously. Oh my God. So there is this beautiful safety and actually put your focus there, maybe, look, manifest, be looking for the women who are welcoming and opening rather than fearing what might be out there. That's a good way of looking at it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So do you know where your next adventure is going to be?
Yes, I actually have a lot of adventures coming up. I'm closing the book for this year, but I have to. But next month is my birthday month.
Okay.
So I'm going to Gracias. So I'll be traveling back to a beautiful country that I've already been, but I'm super excited. It's Colombia. So I haven't been to
Oh,
Colombia.
I went there for my birthday too.
Cool. So I haven't.
I went in
Oh,
October.
that's
Oh my
awesome.
goodness. Okay, so you're going in
Yes,
April.
and I'm
Celebrate birth
yep, and
month,
I'm yep,
Colombia.
and I'm going to a new city. So I've never been to Medellin. So this will be my first time in Medellin. And I have been putting it on my bucket list to hike up Guatapé, La Piedra. And so I'm doing that on my birthday. I already scheduled my excursion and I
Oh my
am super
goodness.
excited for that. So that is in the works. And then my big trip of this year is my backpacking 2-week to Europe. But this time I'm backpacking in nice hotels. But and I'm going with my partner, so it's also a big trip for us. But it's one to put in on my bucket list because I've always dreamed of going to Paris. So I'm splurging and getting a nice hotel with the Eiffel Tower view, which is something
Oh my
again
God.
that I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then we're going
Right.
to Germany for Oktoberfest, which is a huge, event
Yes.
that many people travel to from all over the world. So I'm super excited for the content and hopefully seeing some Latinos out there. But yeah, so it'll be really nice. And plus we're doing
Oh my God.
Czechoslovakia and Belgium. So it's going to be, again, I love Europe because you can do that. You can go from one country to the other.
Yeah.
But I told myself I want to do at least 2 to 3 nights in every country because if not, I'm not going to really enjoy it, or I don't want to be too jet lagged or too tired. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, so let's clarify. That sounds awesome, beautiful, fun. Oktoberfest. Never been to Oktoberfest. That's my birth month, October. So qualify backpacking then. Because you're staying in a hotel room with a view of the Eiffel Tower. Yes. I wouldn't associate that as backpacking. So clarify.
Yeah, so I consider now backpacking. It's a traveler's backpack. So I'm not traveling with a suitcase. I've never really been a suitcase person. And the travel backpack can fit up to suitcase stuff. Like it's not like a small little backpack. It's like an Osprey. I think mine is 50 liters or 65 liters. I always forget the number. So it's a pretty big backpack. But I just love traveling in a backpack because it's easier. I personally know how to pack, and this has come through experience. Like it's not something that goes from one day to another. But I love packing cubes. I love making my space, and especially if you're going from country to country, for me, it's easier just to have everything on a backpack. Now, this is going to be the first time that my partner travels in the travel backpack. He is a suitcase diva. He's gonna laugh if he ever hears this. But I'm trying to get him to, encourage him to do the backpacking way. And again, I know it's not for everybody, but I personally love it. I think it's just the easiest way to travel.
I always say that one day never happens. And you never know, because this is a glorious time to be traveling, but we could already feel in the world that it's a little less able to travel to some countries. It's kind of closing down again. And you may not, like you say, you may not be able to get to the country, political upheaval or what's going on in the world. And then, two, you might wish you had been there younger in life for whatever your excursion was. It's just get out there while you can, if you can, and make it happen for you, because you may be disappointed that you waited.
Yeah, I always tell people tomorrow is never promised. And as much as, no one ever wants to think that way. But if COVID taught me anything, it really taught me that because, tomorrow was never promised. There were so many people that unfortunately didn't make it. And when I tell people about travel, I always tell them time is the most expensive thing because you'll never get your time back.
So now I'm curious because I want to jump and get at these guides because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you could be helping so much because you don't realize until you do that travel how much you don't know. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you're going to tell them what they need when they're there, how to prepare for getting there, how to pack, what you can and can't bring, what's not there. Because that's the other thing, when you go someplace and you think, oh, I need to go get this. But do you know how to get that in a foreign language? It's just you can help so many people. I got to see these guys.
Yes.
I'm curious now. Yes.
So, that's one thing that I definitely pride myself. So the last guide that I worked on was my Egypt guide. And in my Egypt guide, I literally break down who my tour guide was, what she provided, everything that was included. I provide like how we got there, like as simple as like the visa process, because that's also very intimidating for somebody who's never
Oh,
traveled outside of their comfort zone or doesn't even know, like the visa
yeah,
process is different for every country.
yeah.
So I provide like
Mm-hmm.
step-to-step guidance, links on every place that I stayed at, liability, right? Like I've stayed at places because other people have stayed at because they recommended it, vice versa. And that's what this guide also
Mm-hmm.
provides. Links to all my excursions, like what exactly the now cruise include, my outfits, because that's another thing. Culturally, it's a
Mm-hmm.
different culture and religion and everything takes a play. So when
Oh,
I was in Egypt, like I knew that I couldn't, wear what I wear here in Puerto Rico. Like I can't just wear tank tops and short shorts because that's acceptable here, clearly, because
yes.
I'm by the beach. I live in 90-degree weather. But even if it is 90-degree weather in
Yeah.
Egypt, that's not acceptable because I'm a woman and because I need to be covered in respecting the culture. And that's another beautiful
Yeah.
thing about travel because it
Mm-hmm.
changes your mindset. Like you are a guest in these countries. As much as you may not
Mm-hmm.
follow that religion or may not believe in those cultural norms, you're a guest. So you need to, do your research. You need to be respectful. And I feel like that's what I also
Mm-hmm.
provide in my blog, in my podcast, and then of course in my
Yeah.
itineraries.
Yes. Wow. That is a powerful one because you do find that a lot. And like you said, it's definitely respectful. Like going to temples in Thailand, you're not going to have bare shoulders and going, I was in Istanbul and yeah, be prepared. Like be prepared. Don't let it prevent you. They will give you scarves to cover your head as you enter the temples. But don't be showing up in shorts or short skirt. Be prepared to take off your shoes,
Yeah.
all the things, right? It's just really a fascinating mind bust that once you open your mind like that, like who knows, right? Who knows what you find in of yourself.
Yeah.
Like once you crack your mind open from what you've been trained to be, there's so much to learn from you and you've done so much. And we get a sense that you are a fireball, like you will go out there and seize the moment anywhere in the world. But what is something we may not guess about you?
Ooh. Ooh. Oh man. I would say that as much as I maybe put up this front that I'm a go-getter, I'm a mush inside. Like I feel like I cry so much, but not in the sense that like,
Oh,
I mean little things. Like I'm emotional in the sense that like when somebody literally will reach out to me and tell me that my blog post or my podcast like really encouraged them to travel the world, like I'll be like, ah, like in tears. And it's like, okay, Bianca, you should not be crying over
I
this. But
love
it's like little
that.
things like that. Like I know deep inside, like I'm a mush ball. I tell myself and I laugh because I don't know much about horoscopes and all that stuff, but I'm a Taurus, which is the bull. And I'm always like, as much as I'm
Right.
that strong bull, I think deep inside I'm a mush ball. I recently
Hmm.
posted some pictures of my partner and I, and it was like beach pictures, which I never do. But the amount of
Yes.
like love that I received on that was like probably my most like liked like post in like years. And I was like, see, so I'm not the only one that loves love. And I love that because
We love
because I
love.
think it's something beautiful
Hmm.
to celebrate. So I would say that too. Like I'm a lover inside for real.
Oh, yeah. And those pictures, go take a look again on the Instagram. They're gorgeous. I think they're gorgeous because you just also the setting, one, but two, because you just look, you're emanating
Mm,
like you are the sun in these pictures. You're just emanating all this joy and happiness and like reminding us, like, yes, love first, love first. Like nothing you have is going to give you more joy than that.
yes.
Congratulations
Thank
on that as
you.
well,
Thank
too.
you. I think my biggest, feedback or takeaway for anybody that, wants to start traveling the world is to do it. Like you just never know. Again, like I said, tomorrow isn't promised. And there's just so much beauty in
Yeah.
this world. So just definitely go out there and start that adventure. And it could be small and then it could be big. But the key is to start.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I think we need to have a meetup in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico where you are
So,
and you have the girl gathering. Let's
yes.
let's see what it feels like. There's one person that we know for sure might be there. If she's not traveling the world, people, she might be there.
Yes.
Oh, Bianca, gracias. This has been so much fun and so much learning, and you are a joy. Yeah, I would love to be a meetup wherever you are in the world. Let's do that. I would get
Yes,
there.
let's do it.
You're
We're
a
speaking it
joy.
into existence. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for having me.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And safe travels. Safe travels. Happy birthday. And yeah, we got to follow you on Instagram to see what it's like. Love it. Bianca Alba, Bolivian mujer living in Puerto Rico, helping her comunidad in every way she can. From providing vital health resources to locals in her community through the CDC to fabulous travel resources that encourage Latinas to travel the world, building lifelong friendships, filling their days with wonderment, and expanding their minds to all things possible. Doesn't she just fill you up with positivity and enthusiasm that anything is possible if we just put it out to the universe? You can really trust that she has your best interest at heart with how much she gives to people every day. It's really no surprise that she is a mushbot, as she says, and just loves love. Remember to find Bianca on her social media platforms, This Latina Travels, as well as her website, thislatinatravels.com, to access all her valuable advice and guides for traveling solo or with groups. Check out her podcast to listen to her enthusiastic ideas on how to travel the world and seek out all the beautiful shout-outs she gave for other Latinas in travel to seek advice from and support in return. All of this information is in our show notes on all the favorite streaming platforms for this episode, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And join us next week when we lean into the life lesson gems we learned from Bianca today that applies to our everyday, whether we are traveling or not. Our 15-minute Pod Club episode will refresh your mindset for finding joy in life based on the lessons learned here today. All the best to Bianca, and safe travels throughout the year. We will definitely be looking into your social media platforms to see just where you are and the fab shots you're showing us of these amazing parts of the world. I have to purchase my swag from you so that I can show it off as I go on my own adventures. Because wouldn't it be great if we all had pics on our own Instagram profiles of her luggage tags and t-shirts wherever we are in the world? I think we flood her account with it. Step into your truth, ladies. Ciao. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week. And we'd really, really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like, tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad, and keep following us on our social media to Encuentras Your Voice. We are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentras Your Voice, and let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentras Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.